afternoon. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds good. All right, the number to call is 07000 917 917. You can also send your text or WhatsApp messages to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. Today we're talking about progress ending FGM, youth roles, and engagement. This topic is very pertinent to the subject of FGM because we're a largely populated country, and of course, youth are a big part of that population. So, speaking to you, Dr. Costley, it's important to know where youths come in the entire conversation about FGM. So, where do youth come in, and how can they contribute to ending FGM?
Okay, thank you very much. When we talk about young people, young people are not just the. Okay, let me start by laying this background. The young people had the demography that is directly affected by the impact of female genital mutilation. When you look at the NDHS statistics that we have for Nigeria, you look at the girls between the ages of 10 and 19, and they are the most affected, and the prevalence is actually on the rise. And these are young people. So they are the demographic by female genital mutilation. Also, young people are also the demography that have the solution to end the female genital mutilation. I'm going to say that when you look in the communities, you see young people at the front line. You see young people organizing community outreaches, leading their peers, educating their peers on social media, teaching them about the harmful effect of female genital mutilation. Young people holding the government accountable to say that there has to be a law about violence against person in Nigeria. And you see, when you look at the whole campaign in 2016, even for the country to domesticate the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, it was young people that actually led that. And female genital mutilation is recognized as an extreme, not just a violation of the rights of women and girls, but an extreme form of violation of the rights of women and girls. And it's also captured. The law that bans FGM is also captured in the backpack. Young people are at the front of leading these campaigns for us to have laws and policies that outrightly bans FGM. When you look at the Child Rights Act, these are young people also championing this, because even when it comes to anti-female genital mutilation prohibition bills at state level, young people are championing this cause and holding lawmakers accountable to say that no, in our state we want female genital mutilation to be relegated to the pages of the book of history. And what the culture of extreme culture against women and girls, we want it to be absolutely relegated to the book of the pages of history. So it's very important that we understand that these young people are the demography that are directly affected. Again, they're also the demography actively leading the campaign to end female genital mutilation. And I'm excited that even the organization that invited me here, Hacey Health Initiative, this is a youth-led and a youth-focused non-governmental organization at the forefront of also ending this campaign. And it shows you the power of young people. I also work with non-governmental organization in Osun State, which is one of the states with high prevalence of female genital mutilation in Nigeria. They are saying, and end has to come to this practice. We can no longer continue to watch our women and girls being harmed. It is time now to end it. And that is how young people come in.
See, I really like your point of view, but I have a very slight reservation, and I'll bring it up with you. And this is where I need your point of view. Now, respect is a big thing in Africa. And if you bring it down to Nigeria, it's an even bigger factor when it comes to relationship with people, and even more importantly, when it comes to relationship with elders. There's always that factor of, oh, you need to be respectful, you need to, and under that umbrella of respect comes, oh, you can't say certain things to older people because of the respect factor. Now, if younger people are championing the cause of eradicating FGM, which we already know on some basic level, the custodians of the culture of female genital mutilation in Nigeria lies in the hands of older people. The traditional circumcisers, even the people who do the medicalized version, so to speak, are usually older people. So how is that relationship going to play out? And I say this because if youths are championing the cause of eradication, so they're basically sending across the message of, we know that this is wrong, we're trying to educate you on the fact that it's wrong, the pros and cons, actually just the cons, because there are no pros, just the cons. But how do we now educate the older generation, who are the people who mostly do this? So how would that message be received by this older generation if it's coming from younger people?
I mean, that's a very important conversation that we need to have in this space. Let me quickly acknowledge that what you've just painted, the scenarios you've just mentioned, is happening. And I remember that I started my active advocacy at about the age of 22. And I would go to some communities, and the community members would tell me that, what do you even know about culture? What do you even understand about female genital mutilation? Even you are. So what is the problem? Why do you want this practice to end? And there was a particular time I went with some of my colleagues in Advanced Female Network in Washington. And in one of the community leaders actually threatened that we will spend extra minutes in that community. They are going to pour hot water on our body.
No.
Sure, they went to that extreme to treat us that way because they feel that we are young people. We don't even have the rights to speak to them in the first place. What do we from and what we hold very dear in this environment? Look at it, when you check history, in situations where we've had, or in instances where we've had revolution, it has always been led by young people. Scenarios where we've had a significant change, even change of culture, I mean, the transition in culture, better still. For example, at the killing of twins and all of that, young people have always played active role in all of this. So people look at young people and see them as being powerless, not being knowledgeable, not being able to stand up for their right. But the truth is that the power lies in their resilience, because we don't give up. When you chase us away, we go back and re-strategize, and we look for a better way of approaching it. And if that doesn't work, we go back again and say, can we now bring innovation here? We go back again till we get the results that we truly want. We don't give up. And that is the power of young people. Communities that are very hard to reach, that ordinarily, the older generation would not have that strength to go. Young people will do the extra mile. We tell them to trek distance when they are passionate about something and they want to report for it. They will 100%. And now let me bring it home. Again, it is also very important for us to speak to advocates, especially young people.
Yes.
Culture and FGM is a very sensitive matter. That challenge that, they can actually go to the extreme to defend it. Some especially believe that is a requirement by religion. Let me also quickly mention that FGM is not required by any religion. So because some believe that is a requirement by the religion, some believe it's something that has been, that is actually going to save their daughters from a lot of things. So they hold it so dear, and you dare not just go to them the right messaging tool to use without understanding the best approach. And let me say that there is no fixed approach, or there is no one way approach to handling or to gaining access to, to the community or to speaking to elderly people. It's just for us to understand the sensitivity of the environment we are going to. Are we actually looking at a community, going to a community and meeting, community leaders first? It is very important. You don't just go to a community and start knocking from house to house, like what we did back then in 2014. And, we were actually threatened. You don't just go, you don't just do that. You
need
want
to have a plan.
strategic. You want to be strategic in your engagement, even as a young person. You don't want to say, yes, I'm so passionate, and then you just go to the market and you start talking. Of course, that is also acceptable. But what about you speak to the market women at first and get her buy-in, and let her be a champion in the gates FGM, and let her follow you to go to the market the second day and speak to her colleague about the harmful effect of FGM? Don't you think you're going to get more results with that than you just going and people are just teaching you a way that you're disturbing the marketplace, and you're not, customers are not coming to them because you're disturbing them with a lot of talk and all of that? If you want to go to a community and meet the community leaders first, the community gatekeepers, you have the traditional leaders, you have the religious leaders. In fact, you have youth leaders in community. You want to reach out to young people in the community. Don't you think if you speak with the youth leader can help you mobilize? And if you are good enough, if you are able to construct what you have to say in a very convincing way, going from the angle of human rights, and then you talk about the health effect, and you're able to really convince that youth leader, don't you think the youth leader will even go the extra mile to ensure that even does a follow up with young people? So these are some of the strategic ways that we want to look at. So when we as young people also want to, especially when it comes to grassroots activities, we have to be very strategic. We have to know that yes, we are young people.
Yes.
When they see you at first, they don't know what you are capable of doing. They don't know what you are capable of saying. When you get your messaging well and you are able to convince them, in fact, if you can go with survivors, there are a lot of survivors that are young girls. I was recently in Sierra Leone. I saw a lot of girls, 16 years, 14 years, 18 years, that were just recently caught. In Nigeria too, we have a lot of girls that are survivors of FGM. You can reach out, you can form a community and go in the full strength. You're able to go with a survivor that is able to share a story. You in your work, maybe you've met with some also elderly people in court that can also present an image of respect to the community. What if you go with them? You don't have to go alone. It's not compulsory you go alone.
Yes.
But if you are passionate enough and you think, okay, what you have at hand now is for you to go alone, of course you can also go. You don't need crowds to make a change. It's just you being determined. But when you get to the community, infect some specific set of people first with your word. Make sure you, let me use the word convince or evangelize some people in the community, and then when you form that inner circle, it is much more easier for you to penetrate the community. It becomes easier for the community members too. But when it comes to social media, you have the right to use your platform for what you think will benefit people around you. Especially if you have platforms, you have large follower base, and all you do is just to post pictures. I would say that you're not doing enough. Look at social issues. People around you are suffering. In fact, maybe your daughter have just been raped. You can also use this your platform to educate and enlighten, and especially you can use it to talk about FGM. Because the thing about FGM is that it did not start in a day. We have to be consistent, like I said, and that is what we need to keep talking about it. So, as young people, in as much as we are passionate, of course, we also need to be very strategic and tactical in our engagement.
Thank you very much.
At the community level, but they will listen to us. The truth is that young people that are working in this field have come with the testimony over and over again that they listen. I'm also a living witness. We've had 80 communities with the support of the United Nations Population, the abandonment of female genital mutilation publicly with active support in those communities. This project was led by young people, driven by young people, and still monitored by young people. So they will listen. You don't have to be scared that I'm going to talk to people that are old enough to be my great grandmothers, or they will listen. As far as you're tactical, you're sensitive to the culture, you want to go to a mosque, you also, you're sensitive. If you're going to a religious setting, you're sensitive to the culture in that environment. It is very important. Once they look at you and you're not acceptable, there's nothing you want to say.
That they will listen
They will not listen. They won't listen. So these are some of the things that we need to. We can continue to talk about this aspect, but I think this is just a summary of what that is about.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that young people are very resilient, and even when they are faced with circumstances that are beyond them, particularly when older people are just not willing to listen to their point of view, particularly when it comes to female genital mutilation, that they go back and not just give up, but they go back to re-strategize and come back, as you've said. You also did mention that consistency is very important. And I want to latch on to something about that. So consistency is one thing, but follow through or follow up is another factor. So let me just paint a very brief picture. So I work with you, and I believe that your experience, or with your experience, you'll be able to shed more light on this. Now, we work together to preach the gospel of eradication of female genital mutilation, right? And then we go into these communities, talk to them about it, liaise with their community leaders, either religious or traditional, and we eventually get a stance that, boldly says, oh, we've had change of heart and we now know better. Do young people deem it fit to go back to some of these communities for a follow-up to make sure that the culture of female genital mutilation is actually being eradicated and stuck to? That change of heart is actually being stuck to. Is that something that young people will do in light of eradicating female genital mutilation? Would you say?
Okay. Let me say that for young people and for everyone working, especially on issues that have to do with culture,
yes,
it is very important that we understand that it did not come overnight. That people now believe in and also daily did not just start in a day. It started long. In fact, in the process of trying to trace the history of when that particular culture became very popular, you may even lose the history because it's something that you might not be able to trace 100%. Now, so bearing that in mind, we also know that efforts to end this culture, if the culture is presenting harm and there are no basis to even have accepted the culture in the first place, if it poses harm on human beings, if it poses harm on, like, for example, the case of FGM, which now poses harm, threat, to the lives of women and girls, it's not going to end in a day. In fact, it's not going to end in a month. It's not going to end. It's not going to end by doing one program in a community and never going back to that community. I see people talk about the fact that they've worked in social community, so they think nobody should go into that community because they think community has totally abandoned FGM and no other person should go into that community because going into that community may mean duplication of effort or may mean waste of resources and all of that. That is not supposed to be. Like I said, it did not start in a day. So your one or two or three programs that you think you've done in those communities and the public declaration that they've actually made does not mean that some people will not still go back to their private lives and do it. In fact, because there's now another outright ban FGM. For example, I'm going to cite Ocean State now.
Okay.
People are beginning to come up with newer ways of doing FGM. They know that there's a law. Anyone caught would have to face the wrath of law. I mean, they also know that you cannot go to the hospital because medicalization of FGM is absolutely not acceptable and it's bad and it's against the law. People are now beginning to think of how can they ensure that they protect, because to them they think they're protecting their daughters.
Yes.
They don't know that they are harming both the present and the future. So how can they continue to ensure that they keep that apply Vaseline to the clitoris of babies. And we heard that if you apply it for a particular number of days, long enough and consistent enough, you are going to destroy the clitoris and it will stop growing. So what about that? This is violence. There's no other word for that. It is violence because God has already created this completely. You don't have to recreate it. It's not dirty. It doesn't present any harm. It doesn't go to start competing with penis. It's a lie. It doesn't cause infertility. You know, but people still do it. So what do you say about these people that are now looking for means of doing it in the private life? So it is very important that we understand that when we do programs, we also go back to those communities. For example, in communities that have declared abandonment of FGM, there are programs that we still do. We target specific group of people. For example, there are programs that we do for pregnant women that is actually for mother and child. And we chip in FGM again into this. There are programs that are specifically for adolescent girls empowerment program, adolescent boot camp. We still go ahead and chip in FGM into the of what the camp is all about. That medical screenings that we still do in this community, and one of the talk is still going to be FGM. Beyond all of this consistent advocacy, and not just from our organization, other organizations also go into these communities a lot of work, and they still talk about FGM. And when we hear that there are opportunities going into those communities, we also find a way to see, for example, say the government is about to do something that is health related in those communities. We love to ensure that we bring in FGM messages into this. We also reach out via media because we know that in communities they listen to radio. So we use the power of local radio, just the way AC Health Initiative is supporting this program with their donors.
Yes.
And so we also leverage on the power of local radio to continue to reach out. Now, beyond all of this, there is a new concept. It's not a new concept, but it's something that when you study cultural evolution over time, it's also a component that is also very important. In communities, especially that have completely declared the abandonment of FGM, there's a need, in fact, not just at that point, not just at the point of the abandonment declaration, right from the time that you're beginning to engage them, there's a need for the community to own the message that you're even passing to them. They need to own the program that you're doing for them. So it will no longer be you or your donor doing it for them. It will be the community seeing it as a very important need in the community. So it needs for that level of acceptance. So it means that after acceptance, you need to be part of the planning to say that, okay, it is not just only talk that we need in the community, in this community. Can you also do something about our water? Maybe this will also help our people. Okay, can you also empower our women? Can you also empower our girls? Of talking in the market, can we talk in the hall? Can we have a town hall meeting? So the need to also be part of the plan. Now that is just a part. Where I'm actually going is that after they declared the abandonment of female genital mutilation practice, there's also a community herself to come up with a mechanism of checkmating the culture in the community too. Come up with a concept of checkmating perpetrators of what the community have unanimously agreed to abandon.
Yes.
To come up with a mechanism of checkmating whoever violates that and a reporting mechanism. And usually what community members have done over time, we've seen community members that have come up with surveillance team. And we say that, okay, these are the people that we believe can go from one house to the other to still continue to talk about FGM. These are the people that we think, they can attend any ceremonies, they can do this, they're also very close to the people, and we know if there's anyone thinking of mutilating a daughter. In that surveillance team, usually a lot of different generations are represented in that surveillance and different group of people in the community. Community members usually suggest and design. You can only help maybe to give some technical expertise. Maybe you see that they're not even bringing adolescent girls in, or they're not bringing women in. You can just say, don't you think people that are even affected? So you can only suggest to them, or they will come up with a mechanism of technique. We've seen communities that have come up with their own bylaw to say that in this community, if anybody should cut a daughter, this is what we will do. We will first punish the person in this community, send the person out of the community before we even hand over the person to the
Interesting.
So these are things that we need to also consider when we do some of these projects. But we should also understand that for some of us, we just want to go to the community and just talk to one person. It doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing. Yes, go to that community and talk to that, because you are going to sow the seed. The next person that is going would also talk, and the next person will talk, and you can never know which of the conversation would create a permanent behavioral change in the community members. And you would never know who again will come and say, can I support you to set up a civilized thing? So, but we need to continue to engage. You go to a school in the community to talk to them about FGM, and you think, oh, because you're not setting a civilized thing in the school, you're not doing enough. No, it is not right. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. So don't look down on that little effort that you are making. And if you have the capacity and the strength to stay consistent, you can stay consistent. And if you have the capacity and the effort to even provide technical support and support for the community to set up their own surveillance, you can go ahead and do it. So these are some of the things that we need to look at.
Thank you very much, Dr. Costley. We're still talking very much about youth being instrumental to ending FGM. The subject specifically is progress to ending FGM, youth roles and engagement. This is still Let's Talk FGM on Your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. Women Radio 91.7.
Mama Dora, bring Dora, come on. Mama Dora, don't come circumcise us. You want circumcise your pikin? You say the nation of everybody don't know circumcision no good at all. Now you want destroy your pikin life. Papa Dora, you know say person wey pay somebody to do circumcision, and person wey do the circumcision, now all of them go prison wey fit reach like 4 years, and dem fit still even pay 200,000. If you give person ordinary advice, say make dem do circumcision, you go fit go prison for like 2 years and still pay like 100,000 fine money. In short, tell my family that call this law enforcement just to go arrest you. Wetin dey do no good? You no circumcise the right again, eh? Papa Dada, carry your yama knife comot my house. Only self go report you. Circumcision no good at all, o. As e dey cause plenty health palava for girls body. My people, if you hear or see person wey wan circumcise any girl, stop and go to law enforcement person near you, or make you call 0812 467 0069. Female circumcision no good. Make we join hands stop am. Na Hacey Health Initiative to stop cut project wey dey funded by Nations Trust Fund to end violence against women. Bring una this message.
WFM 91.7. Radio never sounded so cool.
Yes, this is 28 minutes to 3 on Your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. And we're still talking about progress to ending FGM. Progress to ending FGM, youth roles and engagement. You're tuned into Let's Talk FGM on Your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. Let's Talk FGM is an initiative of Hacey Health Initiative in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by the United Nations Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women. The focus today is on youth roles and engagement as regards the path to ending FGM. This is an extremely important subject that we're discussing today. And of course, I have with us our guest, Dr. Costley Aderi-Bigbe, a survivor and anti-FGM activist. To join the conversation, call the number 07000 917 917. 07000 917 917. You can call in, ask questions to the guest, lay your comments, complaints, observations, whatever it is that you want to say to our guest, of course, and she'll do justice to the subject for you. You can also send your text or WhatsApp messages to 0703 175 6537. 0703 175 6537. Now, talking about progress to ending FGM, the roles of youth in engaging, the roles of youth and all that they have to offer, let me put it that way, in engaging people and, of course, convincing them to eradicate FGM. That sounds like a lot of work. And some people would be inclined to think that young people may not necessarily be able to foster this kind of change. And you've talked about young people, even if you want to do this alone, you can go ahead and do it. But if you also want to work with an agency, you can go ahead and do that. Now, how will that come about? How can young people partner with organizations to create this movement? How can they work with organizations? How can they access these organizations to be able to join the movement against FGM? Dr. Costley?
Yes, I'm here. It's also I just like your perspective and how this conversation have been channeled since we started to converse.
Yes.
Because movement building is also very important, especially when you talk about ending culture. It's important that there are people, working together and people speaking in one voice. Speaking to say that this has to end in this generation, this has to end in this community. So, because before now, a lot of effort have gone into ending female genital mutilation, I must confess. The advocacy did not start in 2022. It started way back, but it's just that the voices they were speaking to those that really knew or have that information, the health workers, that you notice that this is killing women and girls. They were just very few, and nobody was listening to them. And then that gradually, started that number of voices started growing in numbers, and then the numbers continued that way over the years, and now we have a lot of people, including the United Nations, recognizing FGM as a violation of the rights of women and girls, but it has no benefit. And that is the power of movement. And now a lot of people are beginning to know. For example, my parents told me that they know that FGM was wrong when they circumcised me. If they had knew, they wouldn't have done it. In fact, nobody told them that FGM was wrong. But now, even before I told them, they already heard. And by the time I was speaking with them, it was much more easier for me to convince them because they've heard of radio. Yes. And that is the power of movement. So we need a lot of voices, power, strength coming together to speak unanimously with one voice against female genital mutilation. This is one of the very important and significant ways we can end here. Now, when it comes to youth movement against FGM, because a lot of people have gone into it over the years, and they see that most of the efforts did not yield results as they ought to yield results. So we are now beginning to look at it that can we collaboratively instead of working in isolation like I said, can we reach that are also doing, can we reach out to young people and say, okay, we as young people with so numbers of followers are coming together to talk about FGM on Twitter. If I'm talking about it alone, I cannot trend on Twitter. But if I about it with my colleagues, let's say about 10 or 15 of them, then we can make it happen. We can trend. We can make it a very important issue. And when you go to Twitter, you see FGM and you're wondering what is this? You click on it and you get all the information you need. And we're able to reach more people. We're able to sensitize more people. And that is what movement is all about, movement building. People coming together, CSOs, NGOs coming together to say that, okay, let us work collaboratively. What have you done in this community? Tell me, okay, let me leverage on what you've done and do this. What have you done? Okay, what can we do together as a group? And for young people too, there's also a movement already ongoing. And it started this year because we are also beginning to recognize that it is important that we don't just build this movement. Even in Nigeria alone, we build it across borders. Yes. That will come borderless because the issue of FGM, just the way it is in Nigeria, it is like that in Kenya, and it is like that in 28 African countries. And it's not just in 28 African countries. In fact, it is now in 98 countries because of migration all over Eastern Pacific. Even in the UK have arrested nothing less than 6 perpetrators of FGM. Even in the US, it's happening. People are not just talking about it. Or we've heard it. They are making laws against FGM. It means that somehow it's being reported, but it's being neglected. So, and that is why it is important that we build our movement, even within the country, within states, within communities, and even across borders, across Africa, beyond Africa. And that is already ongoing. And that is the Global Youth Consortium Against Female Genital Mutilation. The Global Youth Consortium started with just a group of young people from about 45 countries. that met in Senegal, Dakar last year, November 2021, and we were talking about FGM, of course, with the support of the United Nations Population Fund convened the program. And young people were just deliberating, and it became very evident that there's a need for young people to work together. In some countries, you look at, let me cite Kenya and Uganda, for example. Kenya had very strong growth against FGM. Uganda, these are other countries. Uganda have a law that is not well implemented. So people will travel from Kenya to Uganda because they think that they can have free access and nobody will really hold them accountable in Uganda. Travel from Kenya to Uganda. Maybe that is far-fetched. Let me cite Nigeria as an example. In Osun State, sorry, in Ogun State, people will travel. There's a particular case that is presently in court. The mother traveled from Ogun State because we don't usually cut girls in Ogun State. They traveled to Ogun State to go and have the girl mutilated, and eventually, the grandmother, not the mother, to took the granddaughter. Had the girl, a 2-year-old. So that shows that it's beyond my community alone, it's beyond my state alone. In fact, it's beyond my country alone. People are moving, cause whether FGM, they just to get it. But people will travel from the US, bring their daughters to Osun State to come and cut them. They just want to ensure that they don't go through this ritual. So, and that is why the Global Youth Consortium is not just for young people in Osun State, it's not just for young people in Lagos, it's not just for young people in Nigeria, but it's for young people everywhere. As far as a young person, either you are an individual young person, you are an activist, you work with an NGO, you're you're passionate about ending FGM, there's a need for us to join and collaborate and see how best we can help each other. For example, when it comes to accessing funding opportunities from organizations or working with organizations to get support to be able to do some of the work we're doing at the grassroots level. People don't usually trust young people. Donors don't trust young people. Not that they don't trust them, but they just feel that they are not experienced, they may not be able to do the work, and then the organizations that are in the field.
Or they may misuse the funds.
Yes, exactly. Those are the ones that keep getting, the funds. And you see this activist. In fact, this activist is even a survivor. She's working passionately. Even compared to that family member, that communities are even abandoned them. Even the school where she's teaching, they know her very passionately. And she wants to do much more. She wants to go to more schools, but nobody is trusting her with funds because they think it's not, she does not have that prerequisite, she does not documents that they keep asking. So with the movement, we can collectively work together and say that, okay, you may not be able to sponsor me as country, but can you fund us across this state? Can you fund us as young people in Nigeria? And let us see what we can do across the country. And we trust you more when we know that you're going to be able to be accountable to each other, you're going to be able to work together and be able to create even more ripple effect of results. The behavioral change and the impact we want to have in community. So that's what Global Youth Consortium is all about. It's a movement of young people. They are volunteers. They're working on ending FGM, and the vision is to end female genital mutilation by 2020. We want to achieve a world free of female genital mutilation by 2030 in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals, which I strongly believe that is possible. We have that movement also very strong in Nigeria. In fact, there's a country rep for Nigeria, Augustine Mori. I happen to be the executive secretary of the movement, and presently we are now in 65 countries of the world. Like I said, I was in Sierra Leone, I've been to Kenya, I'm still going to Rwanda, I'm still going to all of these countries. And this movement are very strong. In fact, in Sierra Leone, young people are really challenging the government to have a law that bans them because that country does not have a law. And that's how it is. In Nigeria, young people are already leading change. They are already getting capacity building. All of these things that I mentioned that we need to consider, they're already building the capacities to be able to do even much more beyond social media.
Thank you very much, Dr. Costley. All right, so when we talk about young people, it's not necessarily people under the age of 40, directly under the age of 40. We're not only talking about 30s, 20s, we're talking about teens, adolescents, and even younger people as well, even younger children as well, because like it or not, these are the people that will take over from wherever we stop. Now, if this sustainable, then these younger people. Now, I say this because if there is no education for these people, they would literally not know anything about it. And without knowledge, then you cannot progress in this line. So, what are some of the activities that schools or that the educational institutions can put together for these younger ones to be educated about female genital mutilation, particularly with focus on eradicating female genital mutilation?
Thank you. It's important that our institutions know that education is not just about learning the basic sciences and art courses and all of those things, but also we're able to build leaders out of students. They're able to build get the best out of pupils, and they're also able to give them information that will not just be useful to them now, but also that will be useful to them in future. And that is why the advocacy around comprehensive sexuality education in school is also gaining momentum, not just in Nigeria but beyond Nigeria. I know that state like Lagos State now has comprehensive sexuality education incorporated into their school curriculums. We are also hoping that other states would also emulate this and incorporate comprehensive sexuality education into school curriculum. No matter what myths people have about comprehensive sexuality education, the truth about it is that it contains a lot of survival skills that young people actually need and can be taught in a way that they really understand. So those myths are right. We need to really look for the fact about CSE. So I would also take this opportunity to advocate that government agencies, people, policymakers that are listening to this program now, please look into it. Ministry of Education, how can states also incorporate CSE into their school curriculum? CSE also has a very vital component, which is female genital mutilation embedded in it. It has rape, gender-based violence, all of HIV/AIDS, STIs, how to prevent them, what they are, the name they are really called. Because a lot of people are afraid of talking to young people in a way that they understand. I think they don't know, but the truth is that young people know because they read. Kids as early as 2-3, they go on the internet and surf the internet and learn a lot from the internet.
Okay.
Not to talk of teenagers. So you think they don't know, but they know. But the truth is that they're even getting more confused by learning on the internet, because most of the things they get on the internet, they are not able to verify the information. Sometimes they visit the wrong site and they get more confused. So if we teach them all of these things in school is an organized structure that has a lot of adolescent children already in it. So we teach them for purpose. We teach them FGM through song, through music. They're able to learn this. They're able to learn that FGM is bad and all of that. If FGM is bad, is the only thing we're able to create with music. It will forever ring in them. Forever remember it. And when someone comes, tell them that FGM is okay for you to, because like you said, they are the future, the future fathers, future mothers. There was a time I didn't know anything about it. Now I have a daughter. If I didn't get that information at that point, most likely I would have mutilated my daughter now. So these are the future fathers, future mothers. So we need to also teach them. So when it comes with the wrong information, that's that they learned in school. They're going to remember and even take that bold step to challenge. Nobody's going to be able to tell them garbage in, garbage out. They're going to say, no, I learned that this is bad. Can you convince me more? And they're also able to, they'll be able to come from the angle of fact. So it's important that, education institutions, religious, these are also spaces where young people learn, adolescent children learn. it's important that we begin to have this conversation with them. And a lot of teenagers, in fact, I work with a lot of teenagers that are actively enlightening their peers, that are actively going to schools. There are clubs in secondary schools, and I speak about 80 clubs that are active across your Ocean and Ekiti states, that the organization I work with is supporting, and it's basically an anti-gender-based violence club. So what they talk about is different forms of gender-based violence. Of course, with FGM is also a very important. They also talk about career, they talk about different things. It's also a safe space for them to get help and get connected to mentors. And these clubs are purely run by girls. I would say that I recently worked with a girl just last year. I recently worked with a girl. This girl alone visited 15 schools without any support. In fact, we had to tell one of our program officers to just follow, even if it's just to hold hand bills for her and be sharing. You can't be talking and be sharing hand bills at the same time. She alone visited 15 schools, talking to girls in schools, talking to principals, teachers, boys, women, men about female genital mutilation. These are also young people. She's also a survivor, but she was caught at the age of 13. And when she learned and realized that, she says that she still feels the pain and sees the process has the procedure has just been performed on her. And you can see the passion and the fire. She's just 16 years. And as at the time I was working with her, and she's doing a whole lot. So these are also adolescents working and changing the narrative amongst their peers. So it's important that we support them. As much as we support the in-school adolescents, we should also remember that there are some that don't have the opportunity to go to school yet. There are a lot of Nigeria contributes to the highest absolute number of out of school adolescent children in the whole world. So there are a lot of young people that are out of school that are in the community. We also devise means, we also think creatively, work with them and find out how we can reach more of them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cosley. So as we round off now, let's talk about the role that the government can play in creating institutions that can encourage youth participation in the cause against female genital mutilation. So are there any institutions like that in existence that are funded by the government, created and funded by the government? And if not, what will your recommendation be?
So the ministries, there are government ministries and agencies that are responsible for the health of our citizens, of Nigerians. Okay. We have the Ministry of Health. We have other ministries that also directly and indirectly work on issues that has to do with health. When we look at the Ministry of Women Affairs, they work on women's rights, they also work on women's health. And that is why they also work a lot on FGM. Ministry of Health, of course, is a coordinating ministry when it comes to female genital mutilation, because it's a direct health hazard. And the government is trying as much as possible, because if you don't end it, the cost it takes to take care of survivors of FGM is even very much. So it's more compared to the cost you need to prevent it. And so the Ministry of Health is also championing this. The Ministry of Youth and Sports, they are also coming in, because we said that young people are also the demography that are directly affected by female genital mutilation. The Ministry of Education are also coming in. There are a lot of advocacy around CSC, around incorporating FGM into school, FGM talks into school curriculums. So these are government agencies that are working on it. But the question is that, are they doing enough? Are they doing enough? Yes, I've mentioned a lot of activities that have been carried out. I'm sure that the activity that is also presently being implemented by Hacey Health Initiative is funded by an international organization which understands the importance of human rights and human dignity, and also believe that we as we should also be responsible for our health, and are even supporting us to be responsible for our health. It's not the daughters that are being caught. No, it is our daughters that are being caught. We're saying that okay, we are even supporting you to say that you should protect your girls. You should not kill your girls. A lot of girls have died through FGM. A lot of women have died in the process of delivery because they have the vagina stitched up. Some have had broken marriages because they feel an extreme pain when they have sex, because their genitals have been recreated and been tampered with. the FGM performed on them. So, and they're even supporting you to even be okay. I feel that this support should not be 100% from external bodies.
Yes.
We as citizens should also look at it. Government should also look at it. What can I do to also protect my people more? And you cannot say that you are protecting your people if it's not reflecting in the national budget. If there's a national plan of action on FGM, then there's a compulsory basket funding, there's a compulsory funding that is supposed to be dedicated to addressing FGM at the community. The question is, we've not seen anything. Most of the support have been from international organizations, and it is very important that we also own this campaign. We also champion it and protect women and girls. You can't have a society. Your society cannot prosper if you live, if it's not pushing a significant half of the population to just continue to die, to continue to go through a lot of harm. You continue to suppress them with cultures that are not acceptable, and you think the community, the society will prosper. No, it will not, because the military actually have two wings. One is fly. You can't fly with one wing. You need both wings to fly. And
Thank you very much.
It's important that we also look at issues that affect women and girls specifically. FGM is a major contributing factor to maternal mortality. The government needs to plan. Ministry of Health need to do better. Yes, we're doing a lot. We are coordinating efforts, of course, but we need to see that in terms of commitment. What if we don't withdraw their funding? Doesn't mean that everyone was okay, we know that FGM is wrong, we can't do anything about it. No, we cannot continue to do that. We need to also be proactive. We need to take the lead.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Dr. Costley. Our time is spent, but I want to say thank you very much for joining us on the episode of FGM.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And it's been very engaging. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Please enjoy the rest of your day. All right. That was a very interesting conversation, very enlightening, and in totality, it explained how young people can be actively engaged in ending female genital mutilation. Thank you very much to Dr. Costley Aderibibe, a survivor and anti-FGM activist, discussing progress to ending FGM, youth roles, and engagement. We've learned a lot today, and I hope that you have been able to take one or two things as regards how youths can be of instrumental change in the cause of eradicating female genital mutilation. Join us again next week Wednesday on Women Radio 91.7 as we talk FGM and condemn the practice. Let us join hands together to stop female genital mutilation today. To report cases of FGM, call 0812 467 0069. 0812 467 0069. Get more information on stopcart.hacey.org. Stopcart.hacey.org. Let's Talk FGM is an initiative of Hacey Health Initiative in partnership with Women Radio 91.7 and funded by the United Nations Trust Fund to end violence against women. Next week is another time. Thank you very much to the producer, Adenike Kodre, and of course, my studio assistant, Chidera, and engineers on duty. My name is Somdo Titilayo Ajama. Good afternoon.
Àṣàkẹ́ Yéṣu kú mi rán pé ṣíbí ìyá àgbà onígi ló fẹ́ dábẹ́ fún wọn. Mo fẹ́ dábẹ́ fún ọmọ mi. Àwọn àdúgbò ẹ̀gbà wọn wọ́n fẹ́ dábẹ́ fún ọmọ ẹ̀gbà wọn. Àwọn ló fẹ́ dábẹ́ fún ṣàkóso ìyá àgbà onígi gan ni wọ́n sì pè pé kó wá dábẹ́ fún. Ṣébí ìjọba ti ní ohun tó léwu ni. Ewu sí ní láti máa dábẹ́ fún ọmọ obìnrin. Ṣébí ìkànnì obìnrin bàbá wọn lọ sí ẹ̀wọ̀n ọdún